Hello everyone, welcome to yet another day in this The Clown Decade, the decade where things are only going to get worse before they get better. If you want to keep up with all things Clown Decade, do subscribe to the channel and do become a member. And today we are going through an IDubbbz video because he has decided to get political yet again, and that is the type of thing I just can't let go of, especially when a bulk of this video is about immigration in Europe, which I have no doubt I know quite a bit more about than Ian. We're skipping all his jokes because they suck, we just want to hear his commentary. This could be quite a long one, so we'll just get into it. Take it away, Ian.
Today's episode of IDubbbz Complains is all about immigration and xenophobia and racism.
Oh man, this is going to be good. I mean, you know, Nick Fuentes, I get. Kanye West, yeah, he's gone a little bit anti-Semitic, to put it lightly, I understand that, but you can't compare Donald Trump to these two people. He had lunch with them once and never wanted to see them again. Trying to claim Trump is racist in 2025 feels anachronistic. You know, it's like I've been thrown back 9 years to 2016, but the left appear to still be going down this track, and, well, it appears to be working to some level. Carry on, I guess.
And TikTok, and the TikTokification of xenophobia.
Yeah, there is definitely a trend of people being edgy boys on TikTok. It's a bit like YouTube back in the day when you were funny, Ian.
The interest in this topic was spurred on from a guy named Kurt Kaz. Now, this guy Kurt Kaz, he is a travel vlogger. So you would think with all of the traveling around the world, that would really open your mind to different cultures, different ways of life.
Oh man, I'm not being funny, but people I know who travel either go really one way or really the other. Drupka Kunli is probably the best example of a man who is incredibly well-travelled and has effectively become somewhat of an anthropologist from it, and he will just tell it like it is, with the most recent example being the Cuba prostitute experience, explaining how Cuba is apparently one of the easiest cities in the world, or Havana, sorry, is the easiest city in the world, to acquire prostitutes. He also talks about how in Jordan, basically, every girl on Bumble and Hinge is effectively a prostitute that will tell you to go to the same hotel, which is effectively just a massive unofficial brothel. And since the man's so well-travelled, he's thrown out memes about other countries, and the other people from the other countries effectively say, my god, like, I hate this racist, but how the hell is he so accurate? A big example being when he mentioned that basically the only reason 20 to 30-year-old Nigerians work is so that they can have their wealth extracted straight to their parents and grandparents, and basically every Nigerian on Twitter was like, wow, this is true, how does he know that? But then at the same time, my own personal experience, the biggest communist I know travelled the world for a year, going to places like India, Malaysia, Thailand, you know, the South and Eastern Asian countries. And as I say, basically came back thinking, wow, well, this poverty's terrible, let's get rid of private property. He read Marx while he was out there. What seems to influence people's politics a hell of a lot more is one or two childhood incidents, or basically just their innate nature. Going abroad does not necessarily make you liberal or communist, and people who say it does are mad. I think what's more likely is radical people are just more adventurous than moderate people who are boring. I think that's what it mainly comes down to.
But unfortunately, he's a great example of how you can travel the world, and as long as your mind is fucking closed, everything you see is just going to confirm your biases.
Yeah, well, I'm not exactly shocked about that, but I suppose confirmation bias isn't the worst bias you can have. At the end of the day, you still need evidence that confirms your bias to have confirmation bias.
Look at this. Look at the fucking state of the city. This is Rome, guys.
Like the Casbah.
This looks like in Bangladesh or something. Look at this, guys.
I mean, case in point, this is, you know, pretty substantial evidence. Sure, it's anecdotal, it's like one market, whatever. He is right, though. You wouldn't expect to see that in Rome.
What do you mean, or something?
He means or India, or anywhere in South Asia where you likely see markets like this.
I would like to hear more, but you're just saying it looks like Bangladesh. Is that because there's people from Bangladesh here?
Well, that and there's a South Asian-style market in the middle of Rome. The old saying goes, when in Rome, do as the Romans do. That's not what's happening here. This guy doesn't like it. It's weird to get hung up on the phrasing of or something, though. And again, it's not exactly in keeping with the old saying. These are not people doing as the Romans do.
Or are you just assuming where people are from?
Well, yeah. That was the point in the or something. I mean, what does the or something mean there? Bangladesh or one of the neighbouring countries nearby that has a similar culture of having open markets like this that is not like what you would see in Rome. You know, there's a lot of people in Europe who will say people from the north of the USA are, oh, they're American, and it turns out they're actually Canadian. You know, this happens everywhere. I doubt many people know the difference between Norwegians, Swedish, and, well, the Finnish as well, unless you're well-travelled there and understand the nuances. This guy doesn't really care about the differences there. He's just a guy who went to Rome and saw something he didn't expect and doesn't like it. You can make that a race thing if you really want, but at the end of the day, it's okay to not like these things.
There's a lot of people with brown skin in the world, and they don't all come from Bangladesh.
Okay, so what? Is the standard here you have to get their country of origin right all the time, otherwise you're racist? As I said before, a lot of people call Drupka Kunli a racist, but he would probably know the nuanced difference between Bangladeshis and Indians. And I don't think that stops him being racist, or people calling him racist, I should say.
I don't know, do they have fresh fruit and vegetables in Bangladesh? I mean, that's one indication it might look like Bangladesh.
Yeah, not sure what your argument is at this point. You know, I should probably clarify at this point. You obviously get open-air markets in European countries. Now, obviously, you've just played one clip that's a bit of an overview of an open-air market, and I would really need to see more of what you're saying. But if you're moving on to things like fresh fruit in this market, I think you're kind of missing the point of what he's saying, and I've no doubt he goes into more detail.
I've seen this guy's videos, by the way. He goes to Bangladesh.
Okay, thank you. Right. Wow, it is madness.
He's gone to a random farmer's market where the population of immigrants is a bit higher than other places in the city, and he's saying, yep, we're in fucking Bangladesh.
Yeah, I think a man who's been to Bangladesh is probably more trusted to make comparisons to Bangladesh than either me or you, who have not been to Bangladesh. I mean, it seems quite obvious to me that the picture that IDubbbz got from Google Images of this particular street stall, that it's not even just this one, it's all the ones behind it. It looks very neat, no boxes strewn about. The only produce that is visible is stuff that's for sale. You know, you've not got the next bunch of crates that are going to be put on sale once these run out visible like you did in the guy's video. You know, there's a lot more to this argument than just, oh, there's a load of brown people here. That's not quite the argument. You know, it's an aspect of it, possibly for him, sure. And there's plenty of markets I know throughout England and Wales where you have a few non-white people selling there too, but their stores will look similar to the white people stores, let's say, rather than this big Bangladeshi one, which, as you can see, has boxes everywhere and absolutely everything out in the open. Like, there's clearly a difference here.
Look at the state of this place.
You mind telling us what the state is?
Look at the fucking state of the city. Look at the state of this place. Look at this, guys. Look at this.
But I don't know what the state is.
I'm definitely with you. He could give more examples. The problem is that I've gone through IDubbbz videos before, and I know that he leaves out quite a lot of context when it comes to this sort of thing. You know, you're getting the quick clips of him saying, look at this, look at this, look at this, but I'm not seeing any particulars. That doesn't mean he doesn't give them, though.
I need you, the vlogger, to tell me what the state is.
Well, he's telling you via the video. You know, this is an example of show don't tell. The place looks a mess. There's graffiti all on the outside. It looks like there's barely any Italian natives in the area. Stores all look overloaded. As I say, it's not quite as neat as the picture that you got from Google. Now, you can just say, oh, it's the brown people all you want, but ultimately it's not like he's putting cameras in people's faces and saying, look at this brown person, this is the problem. And don't get me wrong, there are some stores that look very neat, so there are others that don't and are a hodgepodge of random items. And yeah, it's, again, in my experience, and I only really have a proper experience of English and Welsh markets, with the odd European market that I've been to, and yeah, this doesn't look as neat as I would expect. And this does not look like a good advert for the place, which the guy isn't advertising, and he's obviously with all the commentary of, oh, isn't this all terrible? And, you know, some of it's not that bad. But it's the odd stall or two. You know, generally it doesn't look like a very inviting place for someone who's been to other markets that have a higher standard. Now, you can call me a snob all you want for that, and that's fine. What I'm trying to say is that trying to make this just a race thing, it is kind of missing the mark. To some extent, it might be a race thing for this guy, I don't know. It might be a good front to hide that, sure. But if that's the point you're trying to make, you're not making it very well, IDubbbz.
Look at this, guys. This is Rome. This is Europe. Does this look like Europe to you?
Yes, it looks like Europe to me.
Yeah, I've been to Europe quite a lot. No. It doesn't look like your standard European market to me, I have to say.
What the fuck else are we supposed to gather from this video? It's like this guy, this is so obnoxious. A lot of these guys that we're going to look at, they have an idea in their head of what European culture is. Their idea of these things is like a caricature. It is like a postcard. It is not like what they're actually experiencing on a daily basis.
Yeah, I'm not being funny, but there's a reason that these caricatures exist. There's a reason they're stereotyped. They are based somewhat in reality. Yeah, I have an expectation of going to Europe, and it involves actually seeing quite a lot of Europeans, in fact. Yeah, that's just one example. Oh, I've seen pictures of the market. They all look very neat and very ordered. This place looks like complete chaos. That's not what I expected. Now, don't get me wrong, there's markets in Europe that probably are complete chaos, completely run by natives. You don't expect that in the capital city, though. It's quite a tight ship in capital cities. You know, even Camden Market, London's obviously had quite a lot of immigration over the years, but even going to Camden Market, that looks very neat and tidy compared to this. And that's obviously a market in London. This is a market in Rome. You'd have a similar expectation.
What are these people doing on a regular basis? Selling and buying a bunch of produce in a market. And he's saying, this isn't Europe. I'm not seeing any white cheese vendors.
I mean, I'm not being funny, but I would be expecting to see a cheese market in a place like this. And again, yeah, a lot of people seem to hate to say it, but yeah, when you're in a European country, you expect to see Europeans running the shops with, you know, the odd non-European, or just not even non-European, non-Italian working a stall. You know, when it comes to the Christmas market in my town, there's a German woman who sells sausages with a really nice curry sauce, but that's one person out of about 20 stalls that are there. It looks like it's the other way round in this market, which is very odd. What IDubbbz's basic problem with this is that he's too disgusted at what he sees. Which, yeah, I cringe a bit at the fact that he looks like he's being a bit melodramatic, and he's playing it up to the camera, but aside from that, I don't really care. I don't think his point is moot.
I don't see a single Italian here, guys. I am more Italian than any of these people.
Oh, I don't think IDubbbz is gonna like that.
I don't see a single Italian here. Okay, dude, what the fuck are they? What the fuck are these people living in Italy?
So your argument is that because they live in Italy, they're Italian. It's not quite how that works. I don't think there's any country in the world that says, if you live here, that necessarily means you're of the country. I mean, Kurt's obviously being a bit hyperbolic here, as I say. He's playing it up to the camera. There's literally one person, maybe two people actually, in this picture who possibly are Italian, but it's quite hard to tell without actually speaking to them, because a lot of Europeans kind of look the same. But as far as I care, the point still stands. This is a market predominantly run by non-Italians, and it's not exactly what you expect to see in a market in Italy. He's making the point that lots of people have made over the past decade. Mass migration has happened in many European countries, and obviously in America and Canada and Australia as well. It's changed the face of these countries, certainly of cities, and it's not all been good, and it's not all been positive necessarily. Oh, what's wrong with these people just doing what they do in their home country and selling produce at a market? Not an awful lot on the face of it. However, when you realise that, I don't necessarily know about Italy, I'm coming from a British perspective here, when this has not been voted for by anyone, which I assume is the same thing that's happened in Italy, because I don't know why anyone would ever vote for mass migration, and you have changes like this that were specifically voted against, then yeah, people are gonna start complaining about it and start ignoring you calling them racist, whether they are actually being racist or not.
What does an Italian look like? You don't see an Italian? What are they going to wear, a name tag?
I mean, this is just radical civic nationalism, which gives civic nationalists a bad name, but IDubbbz has effectively become an open borders communist, so when you get silly things like that, it makes sense, but it's kind of not even worth an argument getting into. If I have to explain to IDubbbz, you'd expect Italy to be majority white and people speaking Italian and having a cigarette for breakfast, then you are talking effectively to a person who is being disingenuous, so there's kind of no point going into it properly.
Yeah, my name's Riccardo, the Italian.
Not to get too nitpicky here, but technically Ricardo with one C is Spanish, Ricardo with two C's is Italian. But this just exemplifies the problem IDubbbz has with this video. He's a man who hasn't gone to Europe all that often and just kind of assumes that everywhere should look like LA anyway.
Maybe instead of saying, I don't see any Italians here, you can fucking ask any of these people who are most certainly Italian, ask them if they're Italian.
Well, I'm not being funny, IDubbbz, but he very well may have, but given how dishonest you are, you could have cut it out. I mean, I'm going through all this, but at the end I'm actually going to go through the Kurt video to see what actually happened, because I think IDubbbz is that dishonest. I am perfectly expecting Kurt to have been in conversation with some sort of Italian in this video. I do mean that.
I might not look like Mario, but I'm Italian. I know, it's hard to believe.
How do you know Mario's Italian? I don't think there's anywhere throughout the entire Mario universe in any game where it is explicitly said he's Italian, by the way. How do you know he's Italian, IDubbbz? Because he looks like one and he sounds like one. That's why. But he doesn't necessarily act like one. I don't think it's normal for Italians to trip or jump everywhere and climb through pipes and stomp on turtles. And as I say, I'm quite well travelled. I've been to Italy quite a few times. I can't say I've ever seen any of them do that. Point being there, yes, the way people act day to day does matter in who they are and how they identify as well.
By the way, guys, his clothing brand is called Conquest. He's a white South African making travel vlogs that are vaguely xenophobic. And his clothing brand is called Conquest. We gotta retire one of those things at least.
I mean, to be fair to IDubbbz here, yeah, white South Africans, they have a reputation. I'll give IDubbbz that. And interestingly enough, his clothing brand is called Conquest. It's Kurt Kaz's own clothing brand. I mean, it's a name. I'll give him that. But yeah, I'm not particularly surprised he's wearing it. And to be honest, Conquest is a cool name. I don't blame him for branding that.
Saying that the streets is dangerous. Perché?
Perché hanno I coltelli tutti quanti, I maceti.
Maceti?
Sì, loro.
Look at all these guys. Look at all the shits on the floor. And here they are, just loitering. Very dangerous, he's saying.
Se passo là io adesso, sono un centinaio, mi caricano, sicuro.
Oh, hilarious. I don't even really need to go through the video now. He just shows that he was talking to a local Italian who doesn't like the place, and effectively from his wording there, it's different to other parts of Rome where there are more Italians. You know, there are hundreds of them. They will gang up on me for sure. Effectively, he's saying that's a no-go zone, which, you know, you hear about in Britain as well. Benthall Green being quite a big one. It was quite funny. I still remember Politics Joe going there, vox-popping people, saying, is Benthall Green a no-go zone? They were like, well, you're here now, aren't you? And then when you ask other people, it's, well, I wouldn't go through here at night, let's say. Which is all a no-go zone means. It's a place where you know there is a likelihood you will get robbed or killed or maimed. And that's what this Italian guy is saying here. It's like, well, there's gang culture here, and they aren't Italian. So even from the locals' perspective, yeah, they're pretty much on Kurt's side. It's not doing well for you, IDubbbz.
So this is the part of the video where they really up the levels of propaganda. They start you off softly implying by just showing you, like, this isn't like the postcards of Europe that you see. You guys have heard of Rome in your history class. You never saw pictures like this. You saw beautiful things like the Colosseum, but now you have to see immigrants.
Yeah, this is the Motte and Bailey of the whole thing. The market doesn't look great. Now, it's not an upmarket one, that's fine. Was it one in the past? I have absolutely no idea. But when he's videoing graffiti on the wall, when he's videoing messy, chaotic market stalls, and in many people's experiences of Europe, market stalls are actually quite neat, tidy and organised. Obviously, they're not all like that, but whatever. Yeah, it's clearly more than just the people he's talking about, but clearly the people are also an issue. I mean, ultimately what you're saying here is, well, I can't believe this guy went into this stall and complained and managed to find an Italian guy there who had even worse things to say about the area. Again, this isn't atypical in many areas of Europe, and people don't like it, hence they keep voting in right-wing populists who go on about immigration.
And then you get to this guy who's like, all right, now that I've primed you, I'm going to tell you how dangerous this street is that's adjacent to the farmer's market. Never mind the fact that none of you have any idea what this market is, what this street is.
I mean, yeah, I just had a look online just so I have a better understanding of what is being talked about here. It is called the, Nuevo Mercato Esquilinio. Definitely butchered that. The reviews are not too bad, 4.2 on average. Most of the good ones saying love the multiculturalism, most of the bad ones effectively saying disorganised, don't like it, some saying it smells. At the end of the day, when it comes to major markets like this, Google reviews aren't necessarily always the best because, frankly, cities will effectively pay for accounts to give good reviews whether they've been there or not. But I did also find out that this Italian guy that he was talking to, it's not just some random guy he picked up. He's a guy that is effectively guiding Kurt around Rome. And it appears that what's happened here is IDubbbz has taken his weakest video, because this is quite a weak video, I'm going to be honest with you. I'll give IDubbbz a little bit of red meat. To make the point multiculturalism has failed, you know, saying multi-ethnic market in the middle of capital city, that's not that unusual to see. It's not quite the markets I've seen in Europe, England. Poland had a very neat one as well. There is clearly a difference there, and I stand by the stuff I've said there. But as he was going around the Colosseum, there were people who looked homeless there, who were taking drugs, and this guy in this screenshot said he was from Bangladesh, probably why he said the market he went to later in the day looked like Bangladesh, because he knew there were Bangladeshis about. Homeless non-Italians were also seen on the street, and according to the video, it was also smelling of urine in the area too. And also there were videos of pickpockets, some of who were Italian, to be fair, but some of who that he saw and got on camera who were not Italian. And obviously there was another clip where another non-Italian broke through some glass barriers at the underground station and was being apprehended by the transport police in the area. The point I'm trying to make here is that IDubbbz, as I said, is picking the weakest arguments that Kurt has for the point he's trying to make about Rome having a mass migration problem, using really bad arguments against them and using it to say that the guy's racist, which, you know, I'm not being funny, he's a white South African, he probably is. But the question you always have to ask is, are his complaints unfounded? Some of them in the market, as I've said, yeah, not all of them were necessarily well founded. However, you look to the other videos he's done, and I can see why he was saying the things he was saying, because at the end of the day, it was one of the last videos he did for the day when he's going around making other videos like this, which is quite important for the context as a whole.
He's just going to act like he's an authority on the matter and vaguely imply that it's an immigrant problem and not a poverty problem.
Yeah, and that's why a lot of people who travel can end up as communists, because they basically think, oh, this is all a poverty problem, this is because rich people have extracted wealth out of these people, blah-de-blah-de-blah-de-blah. Which is largely nonsense. Caleb Hammer's series really shows that being poor is a lot to do with a mindset and how you manage money, rather than because you've had anything taken off you. Not true for everyone, obviously. There's people who have really, really bad luck, sure, and that's the ideal for the safety net. But unfortunately, the safety net, especially in Britain, is far too strong, and people are taking the absolute mickey out of it.
By the way, when I was editing this, I found the rest of this clip. He ends up leaving the marketplace, and they go to some random public area and harass some people who are just minding their own business.
I mean, the first Italian woman was doing nothing, yes. A lot of the other people who are minding their own business are taking drugs. So, yeah, I think there's a good reason to complain about that. But Ian lived in LA for a few years and is probably used to seeing that and thinks that's normal. It's not.
Talking about how he's from Europe and he's more Italian than these people.
I mean, I'd love to actually hear what the argument was. I've no doubt in my mind that Kurt does have an incredibly ethno-nationalist worldview, given he's South African and given what's been happening in South Africa. I'm not being funny, but every person I know from South Africa has some horror stories of things that happen there, and I do not blame them for having the worldview that they do. Doesn't necessarily make them particularly nice people, but ultimately, if you look into what has been going on in South Africa post-apartheid, which obviously I don't support apartheid, the best way to put it is that there was an overcorrection post-apartheid, and it did not go down well. And the confirmation bias you were talking about before, yeah, there was heaps of that. I even know black South Africans that missed the days of apartheid, by the way. That's how badly it went.
I think he mentions Africa at one point.
We're in Italy. We are in Europe. We are not in Africa. Get away from me. Okay. This is my country.
Yeah, I'm not too bothered about him having arguments with random locals, but the Italian guy who's with him, don't think he appreciates the black guy's attitude, I'll put it that way.
Yeah, Europe.
Yeah, this is effectively like reviewing internet blood sports. I'm just going to skip this. It's ethno-nationalist arguments that I've been through 100 times and isn't really the point of the video.
Are you from Europe? I'm from Europe.
Though it is worth saying that IDubbbz just has absolutely no weaponry against this line of argumentation because he does not understand the ethno-nationalist point of view and effectively can just call it racist and thinks he can call it a day, which has worked for some years, so I can understand why, but it's not working as well anymore, so you need to up your arsenal. Ultimately, the guy's point of view is this guy's people is in Africa, my people is in Europe, because the areas they had in South Africa are being rejected by them. I don't know if he still lives in South Africa and whatever, I don't really care, but ultimately you have to have some sort of argumentation for this whole genetics are the only thing that matter type argumentation, because, well, genetics do matter to some degree and you need to incorporate that into your worldview. Assuming absolutely everyone's a blank slate completely, even as babies, that doesn't quite work. If you move over to Europe, say in your mid-20s, damn, it's a difficult time to integrate there, I will put it that way, but it's perfectly reasonable to say that you can do it. I mean, hell, Ben Habib came over at the age of 13 and is largely integrated now, to be fair. He is half English, so obviously had an advantage there, being brought up by his mother who was English in Pakistan. And then you have people like, I don't know, Trevor Phillips or someone like that, who's lived their entire life in Britain and you really can't say he's anything other than British. Same with Rishi Sunak. This is where obviously I massively diverge from these ethno-nationalist types.
Oh no! Europe is being overrun! Someone save Europe!
I don't expect IDubbbz to be keeping up on the political intricacies of Europe, but yeah, an awful lot of them are moving right. And I think part of that reason is, despite the fact you've missed the big parts of the video, where he saw foreign homeless people urinating in the streets, where he saw them in these parks taking drugs, and obviously pickpocketing was going on in the underground. Yeah, there's a big reason people are getting fed up. I mean, in Britain, there's a reason Reform are averaging 30-odd% in the polls. And yeah, basically just doing the very 2016 thing of just calling all these people racist, it's not going to fly. As I say, Kurt very well may be racist, but you can't just call him that and expect to win the argument anymore. It's not working, and I don't even think it's a good way to argue anyway.
Now, these videos themselves are very bad, but when you go into the comment section, you realize how many people these bad ideas are attracting. Samantha says, import third world, get third world.
Yeah, that's one that I've seen for quite some time, and as time goes on, seems to be more and more accurate.
Well, these are not imports. These are human beings. But if you're referring to, you know, there being a farmer's market, that's kind of a first world thing.
Sorry, you think farmers' markets are specifically first world things? You know, in England, we've had market towns since since the Romans were here. We've literally had them since the birth of Christ. When you couldn't even describe Rome as a first world country, though it was definitely the first world at the time. But yeah, farmers' markets have been a thing forever all over the globe. What the hell do you mean? The main difference between first and third world markets are effectively hygiene standards, which, if you want to make that argument, fine, maybe that market is very hygienic. I don't know. But my main point here is that IDubbbz is completely unequipped for any of these arguments and will just say things that seem to fit his vibe, despite the fact they're incredibly stupid things to say.
This is what the liberals want in America. Yeah, and they're getting it. They're getting their farmers markets, and they're loving their farmers markets.
Los Angeles is famously a failing city all over the world. I would not be showing off the fact that you have a fentanyl problem in the US and a massive illegal migration problem you've had for years that Trump basically solved overnight. Seriously, I would not be looking at all of these videos that Kurt has been putting out, regardless if he's being hyperbolic due to whatever racist biases he may have, and say, yes, actually, this is what I want. That is probably the worst argument you can make. Can you not even give a little bit of a olive branch out and say, yeah, taking drugs on the street is bad? You know, pickpocketing and jumping barriers is bad. Or are you that much of a mental socialist?
Thank you for making this content and hopefully waking up the European people. Oh yeah, this is something that you're going to see a lot, is people just sort of, when it benefits them, they will invoke the continent of Europe, and when it doesn't benefit them, they'll be very specific and say, oh, this is a real problem in the UK.
I mean, it's definitely a problem all over Europe. It's a problem all over Europe because Angela Merkel opened the door to Syrian refugees. A load more people other than Syrians came over, and then Germany, because it's basically the head of the EU, said, okay, well, obviously we have to share the wealth. And because of the Schengen zone, yeah, this affected everyone. And this was a big reason Brexit won, by the way. Immigration. Because immigration is a problem all over Europe, and this is specifically an immigration issue he's talking about. So yeah, people do use it relatively interchangeably on the issue of immigration because largely all of Europe is suffering the same problems with immigration. Pretty much every European country that has been most attractive to immigrants, refugees, whatever, are having an issue with, say, Islamist terror attacks, gang violence, etc, etc, etc. As much as Fraser Nelson tries to throw out all the statistics of, oh look, but police are recording less crime, it's ignored that less people are even bothering to report crime in the UK, this is, because they don't trust that the police will even do anything.
This is a real problem in Rome.
It's a problem across many of the major cities in Europe. I don't know why you're getting so hung up on this.
Europe is finished. Rome has fallen. Again. Oh man. Yeah, farmers' markets will be the end of Rome.
You get the idea at this point. He just keeps going through comments that frankly are reflecting the general public rather than just weirdos online. I think that's a point that, you're going to have a lot of problems with if you're not taking it seriously. This is not something that is just in the Nick Fuentes corners of the internet now. I keep having to say this, but a lot of people I know, moving country is one of their main plans. If that doesn't scream Britain is finished, or, in that person's case, Europe is finished, I don't know what will. Anyway, IDubbbz finally finds one that actually helps him make a point he never made, but albeit is not a terrible one.
Every city, state, country has its international sections, i.e. Chinatown, Japantown, Little Armenia, etc. There's nothing wrong with diversity. You happen to be in an international flea market. This is Rome is a false statement. It's just a block, not the state of the city. Okay, shout out Jack, the man. You just brought the heat.
Yeah, there's nothing really has to add to that. But it is true. People don't typically complain about Chinatowns. And yeah, this particular market is not the whole city, but, it was said that obviously there were people with machetes who made the guy that was guiding Kurt around uncomfortable, and that, they had to get out of the place because they basically don't feel welcome. Now, is the guy hamming it up? Is he being hyperbolic to some extent? Maybe. But, I mean, news in London, I think it was 2 weeks ago, was that a small girl was shot in the head because of a Turkish gang war. This type of thing's happening everywhere, and it's very hard to ignore. And just laughing at these people, it's not going to work and you're going to be voted out forever if this is the only way you can respond. Anyway, that's enough of the comments.
I think some people have a selfish mindset in thinking that because they themselves wouldn't leave the country that they were born in or have become accustomed to, that other people wouldn't do that. And if they are doing that, they're doing it for like sinister reasons. It's just like a basic human thought to be like, I want to bring some of my culture into the place that I'm traveling to, that I'm now going to start my new life in.
Yeah, people aren't too bothered about the good parts. But over in Britain, that as an example, there's a big issue with predominantly Pakistani communities where they've made literal rape gangs. And this isn't some conspiracy that's something that racists say. This is what official government reviews are now saying, to the point where we're having an entire national inquiry on the damn thing. When some Spanish Jews came over and introduced fish and chips, that came a British staple and they integrated. When Japanese have come over and brought sushi with them, people tend to like that. And what bad do they bring with them? Well, not much, really. If it was only good things they brought over, yeah, that'd be all right. If it's the bad things they don't like seeing and are actively causing harm upon the population as well, yeah, you can just say no to people who bring that stuff over. Yeah, you can do that.
And of course it's going to be these places that are desirable to go to and that are very multicultural.
Cool, I'm not with the ethnots who say multiculturalism can't work. Britain, when it was literally recreated and unified, is and was multicultural. I know there are a lot of people that hate me saying that, but I don't care, I'm standing by it. And you can pick and choose which cultures you want and which you don't. In cultures you don't want, you can maybe take, a few people who have skills that are very rare and hard to find and bring them over, and odds are those people are very intelligent anyway, therefore more likely to be liberal, therefore more likely to be better at integrating. And if they commit a crime and they are a foreign national, yep, arrest them, deport them, fine with me. This is the thing, this all gets fixed from a civic national point of view. You just need the police to actually arrest these people taking drug in the streets and pickpocketing and deport them if they're a foreign national. And if they're a dual national, revoke their citizenship. Why do you deserve citizenship if you've broken the law to a large extent?
There's a reason why people are referencing Canada and the UK. It's because people who are immigrating to these countries like these countries. They like that their culture is either already kind of established there, and there are foods and routines and places to go and people to meet.
Yeah, IDubbbz. The problem is that when it comes to people immigrating here, especially illegally, it's to join gangs. We have a massive Albanian criminal problem because basically part of Albanian culture is to just be criminal and be in a gang. I'm not even joking about that, by the way. And there are, of course, you can go through Callum's travel blog throughout England, entire areas of London and Yorkshire where you see foreign languages everywhere. English is a second language in a lot of areas. And this isn't just a block or anything like that. This is entire neighbourhoods. This is entire towns in some cases, where a lot of people feel like they have been pushed out of. Hell, man. Why are there protests everywhere because of all these hotels? Part of it's to do with the illegal side of it, of course. Part of it's to do with my tax money's gone towards this and I don't want it to. It's also just the overarching fact that most people in Britain have voted against more immigration, and they got more than ever every time. Nobody thinks any particular individual who has immigrated here is bad unless obviously they've raped or murdered or committed crimes, obviously. However, it is the case that it should never have even been an option for them, and people want that sorting out. Your liberal mind can think, oh, that's not very good though, there should be no borders, blah blah blah, and the only thing I'd ask you is, why do you lock your door at night? There's basically only one reason for it, and it's the same reason people want the borders sorting out. Security.
That are going to allow them to integrate better into the society.
No, if they have their own areas where their own culture is dominant, that is the opposite of integration. Integration is becoming indistinguishable from the native stock. That's what integration means. If they have their own communities that are distinguishable from the main stock, that's the opposite of integration. That is segregation.
After watching that video, a little while later, I started getting more content that was adjacent to that, this time in the form of Robin bagpipes.
I am proud of European culture. I will not show embarrassment around European culture, and I will continue to spread European culture.
Yeah, I mean, my one issue with this is that you probably should just specifically say Scottish culture, but still. Yeah, I get the joke here. And to be honest, I find it quite funny. Because, yeah, there's a common complaint that I keep hearing. There's a lot of foreign music that goes on in town centres these days, and I hear a lot of people complain about it.
You might be taking a lot of credit here by saying that you're spreading European culture. You'll notice that a lot of people going into the UK and a lot of Mexicans going into the US, they're not doing this shit. They're literally just living their lives. And I think a lot of people, like Robin bagpipes perhaps, see, I don't know, Muslim people wearing hijabs or Indian culture being expressed or any of these like foreign cultures and religious traditions, and they think to themselves, oh, this is performative.
It largely is performative, though. If you are doing cultural acts, you are performing them, and they are largely performative. This is why, by the way, I think integration's a perfectly reasonable phenomenon. It obviously happens. And so, yeah, again, this guy's making the point that, you know, you have call to Muslim prayers in British towns. There's plenty of videos of them blocking up streets to do it as well. That is obnoxious. This guy is trying to do the same thing but back, to make the point that it's, you know, to you, IDubbbz, cringe when he does it. Perfectly fine if they're not white, though.
This would be like me dressing up in my full Scottish regalia and marching down the streets playing my bagpipe in India.
Yeah, I'd say that's pretty equivalent to this, where a large amount of Muslim believers get in the street onto a road and start praying right next to the cenotaph. Now, this could well be organised. There's been other ones like this that have been flash mobs, effectively, where there was no preparation. It rarely happens, sure, but this guy going around in a Scottish outfit playing the bagpipes is rare. But you find that obnoxious, but not this. I wonder why. These people have places to pray. Doing it outside is quite literally performative.
It's like, that's not what it is at all. The immigrants going to your country of Scotland or wherever else, they're literally just trying to live.
I now present to you a clip of Anasawa, a second-generation immigrant who, I think he's from Pakistan, but he's from some South Asian country, who is an example of someone not integrating IDubbbz.
Every chief executive of every council and every government department, white. Every director of a department in Scotland, white. Every principal of a college or university in Scotland, white.
You get the idea with that one. He also said this at a speech to the South Asian community in Scotland.
I can first of all say that some might think when they see Pakistanis in politics and see Pakistanis in different political parties in Scotland and politics, that somehow that demonstrates a division in Pakistani communities. Actually, I think the opposite. I think it is a source of immense strength that we now have Pakistanis being represented in every mainstream political party in Scotland and across the UK.
Yeah, that is a man who does not see himself as part of the Scottish people. That is a man who sees himself as Pakistani and representing this Pakistani people. So I was right, it was Pakistan. That is a man who was not well integrated. To say these people are just coming over to live their life, it's not quite true. This is sectarian politics that nobody wanted in Britain, nobody asked for in Britain, and yet is being put on us anyway. This is stuff we are, in British politics, having to contend with constantly. Jeremy Corbyn's new party is literally pretty much there as a single issue on Gaza, a country that is across Europe from us, that basically nobody else cares about. There's obviously long-term problems that people were seeing happening in the early days of mass immigration and we're complaining about. We've got a famous speech back in 1968 about this by Enoch Powell, and it was ignored and basically accelerated in the 2000s and has been accelerating ever since. Because ultimately, we've all had left-wing governments throughout Europe and even in the US for decades. Basically, since Reagan and Thatcher were kicked out, the US and UK have both been largely left-wing countries. Yes, I do even mean George Bush there. There's a reason he is not particularly well regarded by Republicans.
And you interpreting their culture as like this exuberant display or them bringing the third world to your country is just ignorant.
So are they bringing their culture over or not? I mean, it's kind of pointless asking these questions to IDubbbz because I don't think he buys that cultures aren't equal. He's probably the type of person who thinks all cultures are equal. And it's one of the most nonsense terms that you could ever come up with, but he probably fully stands by it. I mean, why else would he be making this video?
He says, I brought cultural enrichment back to European markets. I love this British market.
Yeah, don't get me wrong, he's being very cringe and obnoxious, but it is making a point incredibly hyperbolically that I do largely agree with, in that there are things about other cultures that don't necessarily vibe well when it comes to Europeans, and a lot of people don't like it, and the more open-minded, yeah, sure, they don't care and can ignore it, and ultimately I don't blame the Indians if they kick that guy out of their market.
Is performing for these Indian people. It's very interesting to them. And instead of owning the fact that this is a great way to spread your culture and also get views online, he's deciding to bring this sort of disgusting xenophobic element to all of his content.
If you hate your own country so much that you want this to replace it, that there's something seriously wrong with you, follow me around the world. You want to spread European culture.
Kind of with IDubbbz to some extent on this. This is literally just a whole bunch of Indian people who've done nothing wrong living their lives in India. Like, what have they done to deserve this? On the other hand, I get the guy's point. Like, we are seeing markets like this pop up in some areas in Britain, and not everyone particularly likes it. You know, as much as I think it's quite a non-issue, there are quite a few people who do not look kindly upon, you know, halal slaughter and don't want to see it in Britain, and I can understand why. And ultimately, it's all just a proxy for there are people with alien cultures here that I don't like, and I'd rather it all largely be English and British like I'm used to seeing. You know, you can call it racist and xenophobic all you want, and there might be some water held to that argument, but ultimately these arguments aren't holding water anymore. I mean, I'm not being funny, I'm seeing way more of this stuff than I used to on social media. 2025 seems to be where this stuff's rising, and I'm worried if it goes too far it's going to delegitimize the whole thing. So it's not like IDubbbz is completely wrong with this video, but his arguments are utterly shocking.
Because I think it's like it caught my attention, and I'm sure it caught a lot of people's attention because of the contrast. You don't often see the little ginger kid in India playing his bagpipes.
Oh, interesting. Why is that, IDubbbz? You didn't often see Muslims in the middle of the street doing the call to prayer. You didn't often see that, but you see it more these days. Wonder why that is.
They hate it, and I absolutely love it. Well, you don't know what they hate. It seems like they're very much interested in it. I mean, if you love it so much, then you might want to take up bagpiping culture, because obviously it's being, overrun.
Yeah, don't worry. I know there are still people who play bagpipes. And yes, there are a lot of people who are being very hyperbolic and getting on a train. There is very much a sort of a woke counterculture going on, in that people will just say things like this, and IDubbbz is basically right. The Indians just won't care, and it'll be one thing that he does. But at the end of the day, I get the point he's making. If he was doing this more often in the same place, they'd probably find him annoying eventually.
By immigrants. He's fighting for his culture. No. You think this guy's wearing this shit every day? He's putting on a show for you.
Yeah, at this point, IDubbbz is just repeating the same point again and again and again. We'll move on.
His culture is probably wearing some blue jeans and eating a cheeky Nando's.
The cheeky Nando's thing's much more London than big city in England. When it comes to the Scots, it's much more likely to be deep-fried Mars bars. But to be honest with you, when it comes to a lot of the formal wear, like the tartan, yeah, they only come out on special occasions anyway. Guess what isn't a blue jeans cheeky Nando culture? India.
I brought cultural enrichment back to European markets, and you have people genuinely confused saying, is this really somewhere in Europe? They don't know. So it's a double whammy. You can say that this is what Europe looks like, but then simultaneously, you're not in fucking Europe.
Yeah, I don't know how IDubbbz have everyone missed this, but I think that comment's being sarcastic, saying, this is Europe. It doesn't look like Europe because of all the non-Europeans there doing non-European things. But IDubbbz is just nothing but disingenuous these days, so what do you expect?
So you're fear-mongering, but you're actually also just lying to people. But you can say, oh, I'm not lying, I'm just being satirical. But is it really that satirical? It's not. What are you satirizing? The fact that immigrants exist in your country? Or is it the fact that too many immigrants exist in your country?
Yeah, it's that second one for a lot of people. I don't think a lot of the centre-left are wrong in that if they integrated it would be fine. I think a massive issue is the fact they're not integrating. And it's pushed an awful lot of people into thinking that integration is completely impossible because of how much of a failure of immigration policy has been throughout Europe over the past so many years. You're at a point where you're seeing native-born Brits moving over to being radical Muslims, Jihadi John being the most obvious one. Integration went so badly that you have native Brits joining the alien culture and integrating over there. Something that was a position everyone actively voted against, by the way.
Or is it the fact that a specific type of immigrant exists in your country?
Yeah, some immigrants are worse than others. Who would have thought?
White race, heart, heart, heart emoji.
Yeah, this is the problem that I also have with this sort of thing. It's quite obvious who they are trying to appeal to, while their satire is largely something that I agree with the idea of. And as I say, IDubbbz, you have absolutely no argument against all this. You are basically just telling them you have to have these immigrants in your country and like them. That's all you're really saying.
He's also doing this disgusting AI content where it says Indian jumps into dirty water.
Some of the Indian stereotypes really are true.
It is AI, guys. Chill.
Yeah, this is IDubbbz having trolls remorse at this point. I get it's just an edgy joke. I get people find it funny. The point here, yes, IDubbbz, you should know this. The point is that it's racist. That's part of the joke.
And then you read the description and it says, I love Indians, some of the friendliest, funniest, warmest people I met on my travels. Then you go to the comments and he likes the comment saying it's not AI.
Yeah, if we're just at a point where we're criticising humour that you don't like, I'm bored and moving on.
It is so cowardly, right? Because it is, one, not acknowledging that there is already so much racism towards Indians.
Yeah, as I said before, trolls remorse, I just can't be bothered with it. Yeah, I get it, IDubbbz. It's edgy humour that you don't like and want to get away from because some weirdos would say the N-word to your face because you said it online. I get it. You can move away from this without having to go fully the other way. Largely, that's what I've been doing for about 3 years.
And then you go to his page and you realize all of his videos are basically about tearing down and shitting on Indian culture.
I mean, this entire video now has just turned into safe edgy man complains about actual edgy man. This is a joke that would not be out of place in South Park or in Family Guy or something like that. It's not that much worse than some of the jokes in those shows. But here's IDubbbz saying it's basically the worst thing ever and is going to be a massive foghorn for white nationalists. And you know what? Yeah, there's going to be some white nationalists who take this unironically. If that gets too much, guess what? You can just disown them. It's not that hard. Or maybe he'll get audience captured, sure, but honestly, I've been on, I grew up with the internet. I've seen so many people come and go in these spheres that it just doesn't affect me anymore. I don't care. It's going to go one way or the other and nobody's life's going to be affected by it. One thing I can say is I understand why people find this funny. But let's be real, IDubbbz is the sort of person that can say whatever he wants about the American people, about poor white trash, things like that. Man, you say something about an Indian street with a load of trash on it there as well? Oh, can't do that. Bit too edgy, my friend. Yeah, boring stuff. We're moving on to his next point.
We've heard from a South African, and we've heard from a Scottish.
A Scotsman. A Scotsman.
Now we're going to hear from a Canadian. I'm talking Mr. Nelk.
This might be very controversial. Actually, I can't say it. This is the way I'll say it. Tim Hortons, if I walk into a shawarma restaurant, I don't want to see a white person serving me. Does that make sense?
Yeah, weird opinion, fine. I don't really care. But it's definitely one of those opinions that I think will be reflective of ones that a lot of people have. And yes, you can say that it's a bit ethno-nationalist, but you need to have a hell of an argument against this because, again, if you're just going to say he's racist, it's not going to get you very far. It's not 2014 anymore, my man.
Listen, Mr. Jelk, it is still racist when you're using white people as the example for you to make the racist statement.
Wow, no way, you don't say. Literally. Don't make this argument, IDubbbz, it won't work. Makes it anyway. It's all just so predictable, honestly. It's so obvious what IDubbbz is going to say next. It was barely worth making this video, but oh well, I'm an hour in now.
I want white people to be cooking their white people food and brown people to be cooking their brown people food. That's weird. We don't like that, all right?
Yeah, it's an opinion I think stupid as well, but ultimately I just don't care enough to comment on it, really. If you're not going to have a shawarma because a white guy cooked it, what are you doing? I eat curry, I make myself all the time. It's fine.
If I walk into a shawarma restaurant and I see a white person serving me, I don't want it. So you can figure out the other side.
This is the type of rhetoric you hear from conservative dads and grandfathers. Let's put it this way. Do I want a white guy making my kung pao chicken? No. Hell no, right? That's me saying fuck you to the white guy.
Yes, well done. It's a socially acceptable way that doesn't get you cancelled to say people should be put in their boxes and stay there. Yeah, you're right. That is very much a boomer closet racist thing to say. Well done. You know, we all knew this back in not even 2010, 2005, earlier than that, for God's sake.
And would you say that they're racist because of that? Probably not. Probably not.
Yeah, I mean, this guy's terrible at, the faux I'm not being racist but front, but it is absolutely true. Like, the ethno-nuts aren't wrong when you say you don't have a go at Chinese people for not letting other races become Chinese, however they see it. The answer back to that, by the way, is that generally all European countries have accepted other races as being part of, the country, being part of the nationality. And it has happened for some time. That's a better argument back than this. And then the conversation very quickly then moves to, does that mean you need to have open borders? And obviously my answer's, well, no, you can be selective with these people. That's where IDubbbz disagrees. Anyway, he goes on to say that Tim Hortons used to make better quality bagels with the cream cheese being spread on properly, and now he claims that it's just basically scooped on and flattened with a hand. God knows how true that is or not, I don't really care. But then he goes on to say this.
What does chat think? My Canadians, back me up.
Unfortunately for everyone who backed him up in chat, you are, I regret to inform you, racist.
Yeah, I don't think there's much more I can say on this video, to be honest with you. Man just wants a better quality Tim Hortons, and it feels like it's gone downhill. If he blames it on immigrants, well, it might be true, it might not be. I don't know. One thing I do know is that there's an awful lot of Canadians that do not like the amount of immigration that's been going on there for the past few years. Again, it's a ubiquitous problem that every Anglophone and European country has, that basically no one seems to want to deal with.
This guy's my fucking age. Bagpipes seems a little bit younger, which is even a little bit more troubling. And then the Conquest guy, they're my age, and I fucking look at them and I'm like, you fuckers are traveling to different countries. You need to be the change. You can be a bro and not be racist.
Oh man, yeah, this is IDubbbz just coping and seething because he chose the wrong side. He chose a side that is now losing quite spectacularly. I mean, I'm going to skip it all and not have it in the video, but he also has in the description links to the GoFundMes for the 3 people that Ethan Klein is currently suing for playing his entire video on Twitch with absolutely no commentary whatsoever and being very open that that was their intention, i.e. content theft, which is breaking intellectual property laws. This whole video effectively is just talk about some controversial issue, immigration, to help with, well, their fundraising, effectively. You've got less than 7 million subscribers now. Go help us. And I'm not being funny. The comment section is basically everyone saying Ian is a very bad person because of... I mean, I don't want to go into it in this video. There's plenty of things and videos you can watch to show how Ian's a bad person for the whole creator clash thing, among other controversies. The man is a walking controversy machine. And so to come out here and say, oh, you're being a bit controversial, saying you don't like some parts of Indian culture, and you don't want that sort of thing in Europe, yeah, it's falling quite flat. People don't care about what he has to say here. I did, though, because ultimately, this was a man that everyone used to watch. He was a cultural flashpoint on YouTube, and now he's nothing short of a complete and utter joke. For this very reason.
You can make a beer company and not be racist. It's totally possible.
What type of line is that? Vast majority of microbrewery craft beer was by explicit anti-racists, to the point it got cringe. I quite like craft beer. I absolutely hate the culture around it because it's inherently leftist. There was nothing funnier to me than going to a Brewdog bar, and seeing written on the wall, F capitalism. I could not find that in a funnier place, because Brewdog is the most entrepreneurial capitalist investment you could possibly make in the mid-2010s.
In closing, I want to speak to all of the people who buy into this rhetoric. There's nothing to fear. You know, people in other countries are just humans.
Ian, just over the past weekend in Britain, we had a story of an illegal migrant who came over and tried to kidnap a 10-year-old in a park with her father present. And we had another story where 2 Afghanistani illegal migrants came over and raped a 12-year-old. So yeah, just telling people there's nothing to fear is not particularly going to fly. Obviously that sort of thing has to be dealt with. Oh, are all of them rapists? No. I'm not saying that, but what I am saying is that when you get story after story after story like this, the idea that you can just say, oh, but most, you know, it's not all of them, whatever, isn't going to fly. People, at the very least, want to see something done about all this, and people are seeing the opposite. They're seeing police outside these hotels protecting them, which I understand is their job. They need to stop people being beaten and killed and whatever, and you don't know what type of people are in these protests necessarily. I completely get that, but the optics are terrible when it looks like, effectively, they're protecting rapists. I'm not saying they are doing that, by the way. I am saying that perspective matters an awful lot when it comes to this sort of thing.
And it's not a fight, it's not a war for whose culture is going to win out. It's going to be a mixture of cultures. You're going to have to deal with the fact that a mosque was erected in your city. Oh no, well guess what? You don't have to go to the mosque.
Yeah, the thing is, you may be technically right here, IDubbbz, and it may very well be different in America, but in Britain, yeah, there's quite clearly quite a large anxiety around these sorts of things for reasons I can't help but find sympathetic. I know plenty of Muslims who are, as you say, don't particularly do anything wrong, live their life, blah 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 blah. Plenty of the women in these families, by the way, tend to marry outside it, and I know some, by the way, who've married outside of the Muslim faith and they have been completely cut off from the men in the family, which is a very good sign of integration, by the way, I want to say. But clearly, if you have a culture and a group of men, it was specifically the men, by the way, who have to cut off one of their daughters, sisters, cousins, whatever, because she married into the native stock of Britain, that shows there's no integration there. People do not want that, do not accept people like that, and obviously something has to be done about that. Can you at least agree with that? Anyway, he shills the GoFundMes from here, and that's the end of the video. God awful, hate it, not going through it anymore. God, such a disappointment. What a terrible person. And the thing is that the people he was complaining about, the South African, for example, I probably wouldn't like that guy. But, not gonna lie here, he was bringing up some decent points. The guy with the bagpipes, he was just being funny as far as I can tell. And the Canadian guy, again, just an idiot. I probably wouldn't like him. And he had the weakest points of all. Fine, but IDubbbz, you had the weakest arguments of everyone here, so well done for that. That's actually an achievement. Right, in terms of shilling, no, I'm going to shill first. Please subscribe, leave a like, leave a comment, also become a channel member, or leave a super chat or super thanks. Right, when it comes to shilling, Hollow Knight on Thursday, Laughing at the Guardian on Saturday, videos out as and when I can make them. Right, with that, everything I had for you for today. Once again, thank you very much for watching, and until next time, goodbye.